Come on, please. There you go, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, bro. Come on, man. Come on. Come on. It's all right. It's all right.
Thank you so much for joining us for this next episode of Inside JSO. We have some amazing people here with us. What we're doing is we're revisiting a moment that, frankly, started out very scary, very terrifying, but it turned into such a happy ending. We're talking about the 3 officers who helped talk a young man from ending his life by jumping off the James Point Bridge. Thankfully, he did not do that. He is safe. He is doing well. And we are here talking with those officers. We appreciate you gentlemen for joining us. Let's start off by having you all say who you are and introduce yourselves.
Officer Neighbor, District 2.
Well, thank you for having us on this show. I'm Officer A.C. Richardson, District 6, and I've been on the department. Well, I came on department first in 1987, left in 2000, and came back in 2020. So glad to be back.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you for having us. My name is B.J. Creighton, Patrol Officer in District 2. Been with the Navy for 9 years, 5 years as CSO, and 3 years police.
Very good. How long have you been with us, Officer Neighbor?
I've been a cop about 23 years. I've only been with JSO for 3.
Well, we're glad you're here. Excellent. So I got to tell you all, that video, we were first off, those of us in strategic communications were made aware that this happened, that this young man was very close to jumping, to ending his life that day. I guess it's been about a month or so. And we went back to look at the body-worn camera. We heard what you all did, and we were just amazed and so touched. We put it on our social media channels, and just as of today, it is just on our Facebook, 7.1 million views. And our Instagram, 1.8 million views. That's just ours. That's not including anywhere where it's been reposted. Were you shocked when you heard how this has spread, just the good message and that hope? What's it been like for you all?
Well, I was honored. When I first saw the video, someone brought it to my attention. Of course, I'm a pastor as well. And so one of my congregants said, "Hey, I saw a video of you." And I was like, "Video of me?" And when I saw it, I started crying again, to be honest with you. It was amazing. To relive that was touching to me. And so, and I think you all did an excellent job putting together. You captured all of the essential moments, and I was thoroughly impressed.
Oh, well, thank you. How about you all, when you heard the reaction it's been getting? You, sir?
I agree with him. It was very touching. It was something that I try not to relive because of just the thought of the potential outcome. I'm just grateful to God. He put all of us there to help this young man get out of a traumatic situation. Family's been sending it to me. I had no idea we see trending at the time. I had no idea. But again, as he said, I'm honored to be a part of that.
How about you, Officer Neighbor?
I was kind of surprised. I remember walking away. I was like, this is a pretty good thing. Like, it should probably go somewhere, but I didn't think it would, because our officers out there, they do things like that all the time. We're on scenes like that all the time. So you kind of just, we don't do those things thinking it's going to go viral. And so I didn't even think that anybody was there that video would even get out or ask for it, or we even know about that incident. My name and face aren't really in the video or the post. My voice is talking to him.
We do hear you.
And so someone in my family called me like, "Hey, this video is going viral, and I think you're in it." And I was like, "What?" And I clicked it, and I was like, "Oh, they do have a video on that. It did go viral." And so I was glad. I was glad for Officer Richards, and he did a big thing there. And I was like, good. People need to know that, because if it's something bad and it's a bad shooting or a questionable shooting, it's going to be national media. Everyone's going to see it. And they don't see that 90% of the time, if not 99% of the time, those are the kind of things where about someone's in a crisis, they're saying a little prayer, and a JSO officer shows up, puts in a little time and effort and emotion and empathy, and tries to get a good outcome. And we don't see or hear about those enough.
I agree.
So I was surprised that I wasn't surprised that it went viral once it got out, but I was kind of surprised that it got out and went viral. I'm glad it did.
Yes, for sure, because I think there's such a message of hope that was spread with that video. So if you don't mind, could you all kind of take us back to that moment when the call came in? First off, you guys are in different districts. So talk to us about how both districts came together, how that works. Any of you who's comfortable talking about that?
We share the bridge. So northbound is usually District 2, southbound District 6, because they can get to those areas quicker from the on-ramps. And so both districts usually respond to that type of call. I was actually primary officer that got sent there first. I actually passed him first because I didn't see him. I don't know if he was down or at the edge of the bridge. And I saw some cop cars and lights on the other side, and I was worried that it was on the other side. And so I heard him flipped around, and by the time I came back, I saw the other officers out there with them. And so,
Yeah.
I ride the deep north side, Dunn Avenue, Lem Turner area, what we call Whiskey area.
Yes.
And that's normally not an area I go in. That's why I think this was divine intervention. I don't get calls on the bridge because it's usually what we call the X-ray units. That's where they ride at. And for some reason we were busy that night, and they asked me, are they assigned to call as just one to what we say 35 or back up the other units? Simply just stop the traffic. That was my role. And when I pulled up, someone said, hey, he's a pastor. Come on.
Right.
Like, what? And so I went up there, and that's how I got involved in it.
Right. Were there any moments, and from what I understand, the entire ordeal was around 40 minutes. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Were there any moments where you wondered, oh my gosh, is this really going to happen? Were there any moments where you feared that
Definitely.
it was going to happen?
One key moment I can vividly remember was he was kind of still hunched over. He had his hands on the edge. And he started to take his phone out of his pocket, his AirPods out of his pocket. And he kind of froze for a minute. And my heart just sank to my feet. I'm like, God, please don't do this. Please don't. That was one key moment that I can say literally just had me just on the edge of that situation. So, yeah.
The moment was more intense than most people realize for us as officers, and let me explain why. The liability that was placed on each one of us for saying something. One, we were not necessarily trained to be negotiators.
Right.
And so to talk to this individual, and if he had jumped, then everybody would say, well, you didn't say the right things, the liability. And I tell people all the time, as a law enforcement officer, one day you are a hero and everybody's applauding you and giving you accolades. But the next day, you mess up one time, you're zero.
Wow.
And so that's the burden that we had during that time. And when I was talking, I remember him taking everything out of his pocket. He had me his iPhone and his earpods, and he was like, that's it, I'm gone. And I'm thinking to myself, Lord, I'm praying within myself, Lord, don't let him jump, because this is a tragedy here. And as I was praying, I was like, come on, man, let me talk to you. Just to hold it before you do. And he was like, no, I'm going, I'm gonna do it. And that was the most tense moment. Because again, everybody said, well, great job. But can you imagine what would have happened had he jumped? And everybody would say, well, why were you talking to him? Why didn't they call this person, the negotiator? Well, the whole thing would have shifted. And so that was the burden that we bear. 3 days ago now, I had a similar call of a young lady who was suicidal. Mm-hmm. I got to the house on the first one, note on the door, I'm in the bathroom. I don't want to live no more. When I went in there, her throat was sliced, cut, and she had a uniform on, and thankfully she lived. She missed the main artery. So we see these, as officers said, we see these on a regular basis. It don't always end heroically, as some would say. We see also the tragedies. And so we bear that burden. Every time we go on a call, we bear that burden. We don't know how it's going to shift, what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so for these officers to respond the way they did. I commend them. And for some reason, the lot fell on me as the heroic one, but actually this was a team effort.
Absolutely.
And as I shared with somebody the other day, imagine a football game and the quarterback scrambles. There's 3 seconds left in the game. The quarterback scrambles. He throws a Hail Mary. The wide receiver catches it, falls in his zone, touchdown. Everybody picks him up and cheers with him. But it's not just him. It was the quarterback for making an accurate throw. It was the lineman that blocked. It was the coach that sent in the right play. It's a team effort. And without one of those components working, this would not have worked. And without those efforts of those officers being there, support, one talk, one, help out, pray, or whatever they were doing, those things put together brought forth the success that we were able to experience.
Very well said.
So I remember that time that they were talking about when Officer Richardson was getting a dialogue with him, and it was kind of hit and miss, but man, he was relentless. You could just tell in his heart and his emotion and their praying. He was like, I'm not letting this kid go. Sometimes he could respond, but there's that one time they talked about where he's on the phone with his family. He hangs up. He puts the phone down. He empties his pockets, takes out his AirPods. Hold on, my tear ducts are trying to violate policy.
It's okay. Take your time.
All right, I'm back. And he walks to that edge and he stops. He stops responding to us. And me and Brandon went through the academy together, and we were in a shooting like over a year ago. And in my 23 years, I've been on so many horrendous things, and I don't know what it was about this one, but my heart sank. And a lot of cops get jaded and cynical. And you would hear some officers over the years in a scenario like this be like, I don't know him and I don't care if he jumps, and they might make an offhand comment like, quit holding up traffic and just jump already. We didn't have any of that here. These guys are professionals, and clearly they cared about this young man. But my heart just sank, and I got a pit in my stomach. And I looked at Brandon. I said, I think we're going to see this kid jump. And I don't know if I can take it. I do not want to see, of all the things I've seen, I don't want to see this kid jump. I don't know why. And a little time later, I remember, and as Officer Richardson has, I felt it was a spiritual impression from God. He had said something like, you don't know. They were asking about God and family, so you don't know. And I had an impression that I think came from God. I believe came from God, to tell him, hey man, you're right. I don't know what you're going through, but from all these calls and years I've done this, one thing I know for sure, that you jumping is about to be 1,000 times worse for your family and everybody you love. And I don't think you're that kind of person. Please don't do that. Don't do that and come back. And he kind of stopped for like a second. And I saw Officer Richardson keyed up and started talking to him and used that angle, and eventually got him and brought him back. And Brandon was hugging him and telling him, we got you today. And I just thought, man, I think it's a little important to note, they don't train that in the academy, right?
Right.
Those actions that those officers took, that's not something that happened in a roll call. That's not something that came down in a memo. It's not something that's taught. It's not something that's forced. But what led to that outcome was officers who were relying on values from their Judeo-Christian foundation.
Yes.
And it's not something you can legislate, and it's not something you can force, but it's something that I believe, and I know the sheriff believes this, that our system of liberty is founded on. So fortunately, that took place that day, and it was a blessing for me and kind of a witness to me, and I'm grateful for it. I'm glad that kid didn't jump, because I don't know why. I was on a SWAT team for 5 years, and I've been in all kinds of situations, and when that kid did that and walked to that edge, man, I don't know how to describe it, but my heart just sank, and I thought he was going to jump.
Let's talk about the other walk where you put out your hand and you said, please, and he took it. Were all of you there to see that?
Yes.
Well, obviously you were.
Yeah.
What was that like? What were you feeling in your hearts at that moment? And that hug? Wow.
Relief.
I had a double burden that particular day. I was a double relief, should I say. I was relieved that he did not jump, because that burden was on me. I felt like had he jumped at that moment, my career was over. I would have probably been done. because we all get teared out with just the thought of it. But to watch that happen, and I was there and could not, as a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, and I could not do that. At that moment, would have probably just ended my career. I would have just resigned. Probably, I just felt like I would have. So that was a relief. That that hug was that, and then I didn't want to see this young man. I didn't know him, but for some reason, I had a connection and a love for him that was overwhelming. That's why I still keep in contact with him. That love was genuine. Normally, as he said, we I guess broke protocol, because when he hugged me, initially everybody would want to grab him and handcuff him, because suicidal. We say suicide is also homicidal.
Right.
So we want to grab him and handcuff him, and But I wanted him to know that what I felt for him was genuine. This wasn't just some act I was putting on to try to sweet talk him off the bridge. But I genuinely cared, so we embraced. I just held him for that moment. Nobody put no handcuffs. Nobody tried to tackle him. Let's let him just feel that we really care, because the greatest burden was not just getting him off of the bridge, but it's keeping him from going back on the bridge on the next day or the next week or the next month. That's my burden. That's my greatest burden.
Of course. Officer Creighton, take us back to that moment for you as well.
I can agree with him. It was a big relief the entire time. As Officer Richardson was talking to him, I'm just praying for him in my head, like, hey, this guy, just please whisper to your child, whisper to him, because he needs to hear your voice. I'm a firm believer in, we are God's soldiers doing the job that we do. We are here to protect the innocent against the evil. And it's not always guns and pursuits and fighting. There are people that have demons. They have spiritual burdens that are deeply rooted. And I believe in that moment that we were called there for a reason. I've always been the one on those type of calls to be the one blocking off traffic.
Right.
Being a CSO, being where I am now, the position I am now, I was always the one blocking off traffic, just hearing updates, and just hearing how officers are responding to those type of calls. And for me to experience that firsthand, I just knew that God wanted us there for a reason. We all played a part in his plan to help our brother in a time of crisis. It was a very, I shed some tears in my car when I got in my car. I had the luxury of having him in the backseat. We had a conversation to get him off the bridge. And it was, I kept telling him I was proud of him. You didn't let him win. You didn't let the enemy win.
And that's what I was going to say next, because you pointed to your badge and you said, we wear this badge for many reasons. This is the main reason. Can you talk about what put it in your heart to say that?
Like he mentioned, when people see the police, they get scared. I would say the media has somewhat, well, I'm not gonna say somewhat, they have portrayed us to be just the bad guys. Even when we save lives, we're still criticized for the things that we do in that moment. This is a little testimony about me. I tried to be a police officer for 3 years. I got denied 4 times, 3 times. God sat me down and had me to be content where I was. I took CSOs under my wing and said, hey, don't do this, don't do that. And when it was my time, it was a smooth sailing at that point. My testimony is just being patient. And I know I have this job for a reason, for his purpose, and I don't take it for granted. We have days where, we're a little upset, we're a little tight, we're tired, but is praying throughout the day, and that's what give me the strength to do it. I'm saying all that to say, I wear this badge for a lot of reasons, but this one particular reason why I have this badge is just to get his message out to these people who need it. But yes, in that moment, it was on my heart and in my spirit to just tell them that You see the police, like I said, you get scared. And in that moment, he felt, I think that's probably the safest he ever felt.
I feel like you have a similar thought because, you were telling me before we started, you're seeing more of these calls.
Yeah. So I started as a police officer in the Southwest. I did 20 years and retired back in like 2001. My dad had retired like as an undersheriff, so I'd been around law enforcement my whole life. All my brothers were cops and stuff. And so when I remember these types of calls, like we got them, but it was not often. Maybe a couple times a year they'd put out like some kind of bolo or attempt to locate for somebody that had left and maybe had a gun, was a car. I don't know why we would send the cops to look for that guy who's like driving around with a gun trying to kill themselves. Didn't always make sense to me, but like he said, they kind of trained that suicidal can be homicidal. And so, but we weren't getting it very often. We had a similar law to like a Baker Act where you can involuntarily admit somebody that's suicidal or having other problems. And I did that like maybe a couple times a year. You'd get some young female or a mom just did her wit's end. And now in recent years, it's like every officer, like a couple times a day. Instead of a couple times a year, it's like a couple times a day you're going to these calls with people in crisis. And Officer Richardson kind of brought up a big point where that his dealing with that kid weighed heavy on him. One of the reasons I think a lot of officers get jaded and cynical is it's easier. When you walk up and you're making an arrest and you're writing a ticket and you're listening to somebody who's having suicidal ideations, it takes a lot to care. It is much, much easier to just be like, I don't care. Your problems, not my problems. I have a job to do. I'm just going to take you to jail. I'm going to give you the ticket. I'm going to drop you off at the hospital with the Baker Act, and I'm not going to worry about it, and I don't care. That's the easier route, because if you do care, if you do see people as a child of God and a purpose, and as your own brother and sister, and you try to have empathy, it just that emotion that he said he expressed, where this could cost me my job, and you take that home. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like you come home emotionally and spiritually drained. It's like you just did a triathlon. And so there's a lot of cops that end up in divorce and they turn to alcohol. There's just too much stress, And so on the flip side, I also feel like I could never do that because I like people. And these incidents like we had with this young man on the bridge make it all worthwhile. And you get that rewarding feedback and make that difference. But it can be emotionally and spiritually exhausting. Like Officer Richardson said, it can be a lot if you take the time to sit there and relate to people and have some empathy and listen to their problems and then try to fix them. Fortunately for us, we have a sheriff that views the original intent of our founding, our Constitution, and the First Amendment like I do, where people are allowed to exercise and express their religion and wear that on their sleeve and talk about their faith. And I say that the department's very inclusive. There's people who don't have faith and have different faiths, and there's no animosity towards anyone that has a different belief. But those officers that share certain values with the majority of the public are allowed to share those and work on those. And I've seen a lot of success, as in this instance, from that I think in other parts of the country and other departments you would not see that. And I say that's due in large part because that is a big part of who Sheriff Waters is, and he was not afraid to tell you that that's the kind of department that he wants. And I was a missionary for a long time and a police officer, and so I kind of see that where you're trying to make a difference in people's lives, and unfortunately there's not a lot of correcting that goes on in corrections. There are good things there, but the big differences that are made in the community come from things like family and education and religion and public servants who are built on a foundation of Judeo-Christian values and share those with people and implement that and emulate that in the way they carry themselves throughout their daily work.
I feel like none of you would be doing the job you're doing if you didn't hold those values close. Yeah. Have we heard, you kind of touched on it, but how is the young man doing? Without revealing too much, because we still want to protect his privacy. How's he doing?
He's doing much better. We have made sure, again, my concern was making sure he don't go back on the bridge again. So I was able to reach out to him I called his mother first, and she said he would love to hear from you. He's been asking about you. So I got a chance to talk with him. He's doing fine. He has some financial challenges, some other issues that we were able to help him with and get him counseling. And so he's now, he's going through the healing process, and he's doing very well. He was in church service with us a couple of weeks ago, and he brought his whole family, and he has a good support system. And I was just, like, it was another one of those hugs. And
Yes.
as the senior pastor, I walked out, and I didn't know he was going to be there.
Oh, what a great
And so
surprise.
when I walked out, I'm getting ready to speak, and I look out, and I kind of recognize, and I'm like, I know that's not who I think it is. And then I just, he jumped up, and then we ran and we embraced each other again. It was just one of those moments. So yes.
Okay,
So he's doing good.
it's cliche, but that gives me chill bumps hearing that. How about you? I can see you smiling from the inside.
All I can say is just God is good. That's all I can say. God is good. I'm proud to hear that he is taking that step of surrendering it to him and not trying to take it back.
And one thing I do want to mention, our listeners and our viewers did not see everything. It wasn't possible to show everything, but it's very clear to me that his family loves him very much because they were there that night, weren't they?
Yes.
Right. And you felt immediately that that was a way to connect with him by speaking about his family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just, and to be honest, there were some times that I wouldn't say I was indifferent, but I was like, man, I don't want to see this kid jump. I don't know if he's going to do it. But when he was talking to his family and he hung up that phone, I don't think there's anybody today that doesn't have family members that they've lost to tragedy and trauma. I just thought I could not fathom what that would be. I mean, I didn't understand what he was going through. I knew he had a lot on his plate, but to be talking to your family member and then hang up, and to do that, that's what I told him. For the rest of their life, they're going to have to wonder what they might say to get you not to do that. Officer Richardson talked about how that was affecting him. What we all would have been like, what could we have done to prevent that? But I feel that wasn't something that I was trained in or something I had premeditated or that I've used before. I really believe that as we were sitting there and these officers were praying, and anyone who watches that video know that Officer Richardson was just relentless with his whole soul and body, was doing everything he could to keep that kid from jumping. And as we were praying and hoping, I expect his family was praying and pleading and hoping. And not because me or that I'm anyone special, or a special connection with God or more spiritual than the next person, but I got that impression that said to use that angle. And so I did. And that's why I say, how do you teach that? It's not like we have, this is how you get revelation while on the job class at the academy, right? Like we don't have that class.
No.
But we fortunately at this agency, they have some of the finest people. They have great leadership and have some of the finest people I've ever seen as officers who are just good people. And I see God's hand in their lives and their work every day. And I was glad that I could be a small part of this one.
Very well said. I actually was able to talk to the sheriff. I happened to run into him upstairs in the cafeteria. It was a couple days before we knew we were going to release the video. And I said, Sheriff, did you hear about this? And he said, no, I haven't. And I said, I don't remember exactly what I said to him, but what I was feeling inside was, you are going to be so proud. You will not be able to stand it when you see what your officers did from internally within the department. What have you been hearing from people? Because, this issue is so personal. We all, I feel like so many of us know someone who has contemplated this. What have you been hearing from people here at JSO?
Officers, they support you. Sometimes they kind of joke and say, "Oh, here come the big hero."
Sure.
So you get that, but officers are very supportive. My sergeant, Sergeant Domingo, he immediately said, "Hey, great job on that last night." And my lieutenant, same thing. So we've gotten the sheriff personally called me, and he said, "Hey, I heard about it. I just wanted to let you know I'm proud. That subject is very near and dear to me. So we have gotten a lot of departmental support. I have, and I'm sure they have as well. And it made me feel good. I really felt good to know the department support us like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with him. A buddy of mine in District 2, he texted me as soon as the video went viral, telling to Deacon Brandon, and it's been very supportive. I can say it's good to see that the department is backing that, that they are supporting that, they are pushing that area. It's just feels good.
Did you want to respond to that or add something?
Nothing to add.
Because I just say they nailed it.
Yeah.
You all are doing such a great job. I know that people will see this. They may hear it. Maybe that person is struggling. Maybe they're feeling similar thoughts to this young man. Do you all have a message of hope to that person?
The one thing that resonates in my spirit that I heard from the young man, when this went viral and he began to read all of the comments, what gave him hope, what he told me gave him hope, he did not know that people genuinely cared. And I think that if you're going through something and you're struggling with something, sometimes you can feel like you are all alone, you're all by yourself, but you're not. There's a cloud of people, there is a wave of people that genuinely care. They may not know your name or who you are, but if you just allow somebody to help you, it's okay sometimes not to be okay. But what you can't do is internalize it and not share it with someone. Somebody's been through what you're going through, and they're there to help you. I often tell people, we serve as a wounded healer, which means I've gone through some things in my life, but it wasn't just for me. It was so that when I got my deliverance, my healing, I can now share it with somebody else. It's an array of hope that you can give somebody so when you're going through something, you may be going through something now, but as you're going through whatever you're going through, when you go through it, then make sure you're there to help somebody else, because somebody's going to need your help and your validation in the future.
Do you have a message of hope?
Yeah.
Hard to follow that up.
Yeah, a lot of people in this day and age, in the digital revolution and things we're seeing with AI and stuff, people are increasingly disconnected from one another. And they feel alone. A lot of people I had a young girl that I had to take to a hospital a while back, and just recently, she's talented, pretty, smart, straight A's, but lost some family connections and just felt like there was no hope. Nobody that cared. And in this age where we're so busy and we're so plugged into screens, like people don't say hi, and we get so self-absorbed and so connected to our devices, we don't notice people around us. One flosser put it that we're so busy checking our own temperatures, we don't notice the burning fevers all around us.
Wow.
And so, and even officers sometimes do that, right? Like we get caught up on a call or something, and you find out someone's got a crisis, and it's like, man, I didn't even notice because I was so caught up in what I thought. And so there's a real need for people to try and be just a little bit more selfless, a little bit more kind, a little bit more aware, and spread the message that, and those people out there are struggling. I can tell you right now, there are people that care, because I see them. I run into them in the hospital. I run into the families. I run into them and other officers. You might find someone that doesn't, right? But at least in this agency and in this part of the country in Northeast Florida, I can promise you there are people who care about you and your life, and life is short, fleeting even, it's precious. And they will give you help. And if you reach out for that and you don't get it, then you can call for Officer Neighbor. I'll come help you.
I heard you react to that.
They've been hitting right on the coffee for me, right on the head for me. As he said before, we do get jaded very, very easily. We're called to help people that are in Christ. People call us on their worst days, not on their best days. And in those moments where they may feel like something is the worst thing that ever happened to them, we're looking at it as, okay, this is another routine call. And I will be honest, there have been moments where I've been that guy, and I had to reflect on myself and say, hey, I'm not here for this. I don't have this job to be this person. There are, like you said, there are people that genuinely care about people's well-being. Love does exist in this world. We're born in the world of love. It's just no matter what you're going through, I promise you, there is a greater message in your healing than there is during the pain. All I can say is I'm grateful to have this job. I'm grateful for what I do. I love what I do. That's all I can really say right now. I'm trying to keep it together, but it's just, I'm grateful. I'm honored to have this position and to work up under a sheriff that knows who God is. That's it. That's all I can say. I'm grateful and I'm honored. So.
Very well said. Is there anything maybe that I didn't touch on that you want to say and share?
Let me share with you what happened with the young man at church.
Sure.
And I said earlier, and Officer, he touched on it perfectly. Sometimes we get caught up in our own personal problems, and we don't realize that whatever you're going through it for a reason. It lasts for a season, but it has a purpose. So when the young man was at my church and he got a chance to share his testimony, and the congregation was just in tears. But after the service, here's what broke both of us down. There was a young man in my congregation who walked up to him and said, man, I had made up in my mind that I was going to kill myself. And he shared that with him. And he said, because you live, I'm now going to live. And so if we just go through the process of life and just endure long enough, knowing that all things are going to work together for our good, your troubles will free somebody else. And he just broke down and said, he turned to me and said, Officer Richardson, Pastor Rich, had I jumped, this man also would have been, his life would have been ended. So if you're going through something, remember, God has you there for a reason, a season, and he has a purpose. That's it.
That's incredible. See, you didn't tell me that before we started recording. And wow, I bet that made him feel so good.
Oh yes, that was. Now he has purpose, and that's what people need: purpose. They need to know your life is not in vain. You're not just placed in here for. People ask me, I'm 61 years old, and I came on in 1987, so I stayed for a while and I left. Did ministry and I came back. And somebody asked me a question, when are you going to retire, man? You've been around a long time. And I came here when McMillan was the sheriff and we had revolvers. So I've been here a long time. But he asked me when I was going to retire. I said, when I start working. This is not a job to me. You retire from a job. You don't retire from a calling. This is a calling. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here, but this is a calling for me. And I haven't been released from that calling yet.
Well, we hope you stick around because we need you. We need all of you. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. We appreciate what you did for that young man, what you're still doing for our public, and for the people who will hear this also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do want to share that if you or someone you know or love, is having or struggling with thoughts of suicide, please reach out to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is 24/7. Those people are there to help you. And don't forget, JSO is here to help you as well, as we saw with these wonderful men and also everybody else who was there to help. Because as he said, it was a team effort. All right, thank you for watching and listening to this episode of Inside JSO. As always, be safe.